What high school conspiracy turned out to be true at your school? There was a girl freshman year who went missing. She ended up being found dead in the river. There were rumors that she was seen on a bridge with her boyfriend the day she went missing. Nothing was ever found and they assumed it was suicide and accident. Fast forward 25 years and the boyfriend murdered his best friend of several decades, set a fire to cover it up, and went on the run. Couple days later he killed a woman at a rest stop in the bathroom to steal her car. They reopened the case about the high school girlfriend. That rumor was correct all along. He will be in prison the rest of his life. That one of the cheerleaders was dating one of the teachers, in his 40s. A year after graduation, they got married and had a baby. Still together 11 years later. I attended a newly opened high school that apparently used to be a school for troubled kids. Someone told me there were padded rooms somewhere in the school, so I skipped lunch with a friend one day to walk the halls and find them. They did exist, but by next year they were renovated into offices and storage rooms. I thought that was pretty interesting and seriously wondered what went on there before it was turned into a normal high school. We had one in my school that was a sort of stress room where kids with developmental disabilities could go and vent any serious frustrations without inconveniencing other kids' teachers. Their aides would escort them to the room and let them do what they needed to do, as long as they didn't purposely try to injure themselves or anything, and then they helped them get back to class once they'd tired themselves out. There were 3 seniors in different years who married teachers shortly after graduating. One was my former prom date. This happened at our school with the 50-year-old band director. The student was pregnant when she graduated. Band director at my school was sleeping with a trumpet player student. And one of my best friends was sleeping with the intern band director. The summer before, both band teachers came to our room late one night at band camp and tried to hook up with me and that friend. I said no way. The band director ended up moving. There were rumors about a music teacher and a student, but they were both pretty dramatic people and did very little to dismiss the talk. So half the school wanted to believe it for the salacious thrill and half just waved it off as attention seeking and sheet talking. Teacher got canned without explanation. Most of us just figured it was budget related. A math teacher filled in on his music theater roles. Years later I randomly caught up with the student and she said the rumors were true. She freaked out and tried to end things to shake off the reputation, and eventually the teacher showed up trashed and naked on her family's front lawn, in the rain, yelling out for her. Like a really ducked up version of John Cusack from Say Anything, but with less boombox and more drenched wang. Lead in the water. Our high school tap water was dark brown and we weren't allowed to bring our own water bottles or get filtered water from the cafeteria without paying $3. We sent hundreds of emails asking the school board to look into it, but they said it was fine. In my senior year, a student did a science fair project on the illegal amount of lead in the tap water, forcing the school to investigate and fix all the taps. English teacher who was close with students. Not in a pervy way, but more like he was a fellow student instead of an authority figure, was hosting weekend poker parties with his closest students where he would serve booze and weed up. One weekend, someone prank called the cops claiming one of these parties was happening. They went to his place and there was one happening as described, but with porn on every TV in the house. Teacher was immediately fired, had his license revoked and disappeared for a couple of years. Students tried protesting the firing because, well, he was the cool guy who gave them weed and booze. According to social media stalking, he's back teaching English at a high school a few hours south of my town now. Edit, we absolutely thought the dude was a perv once the story broke that there was porn involved. Everyone just thought he just wanted kids to think he was cool before the real story came out. There was this weird closet built into the middle of the hallway. Yep, the middle. So you had to walk around a giant block of a closet, but the door was always locked. Every morning before the bell rang, we'd meet up by the closet block because it was close to our lockers. The rumor was that it was full of mold because our school was underfunded and gross, but I figured it was just janitorial supplies. I had never seen a janitor go in there, but why would they leave a closet full of mold? Plus, there was already a room that was full of mold. The old boiler room, which was underground and hadn't been used in decades. Then one day, the door was unlocked. Mold. So much mold. Multiple stacks of German textbooks were rotting inside this closet. The pages were wavy and stuck together, and the whole thing was covered in black spots with a white dust on top. The closer you got to the bottom of the stack, the more uniform the books became. They had literally melted together and dried, Lord knows how many times. I simply closed the door and said, "Well guys, I guess this is why we only have Spanish as our foreign language. TLDR, weird closet full of mold that was dealt with by being locked all the time." Due to budget cuts or something, all of our metal and wood workshop machines were to be taken away and replaced with worse versions. The shop teachers and drama teachers that were in the building at the time didn't like this idea, so they hid all the machines in a false wall somewhere in the building. The people came to pick them up and they told them that people had already come to pick them up and that they were late. They did some looking around and couldn't find the machines and gave up. A few years and one principal later, they brought the machines back out from behind the walls. And that's how the smallest high school of our district with only around 450 students became the best school in the district to learn metal and woodwork. Edit. Happened before my time at the school. This is just what I heard from the drama teachers, lol. One of the history teachers cheating on his wife with one of the English teachers. They were going to get a divorce anyways, and the second they were divorced they started dating. Science teacher cheating on his wife that has brain cancer with the art teacher. They got caught in the art rooms and were canned. Fun fact, their replacement teachers are now happily married after they met there. Must be a normal thing in high schools. That our high school had an extensive network of underground tunnels and shelters left over from WWII. Sure enough, not long after I graduated, they were renovating one of the weight rooms that was either at basement level or partially underground, and they found an entire walled off room stocked with supplies from the early Cold War era that no one had remembered. So maybe the supposed tunnel system under the football field was a bit of a stretch, but there definitely were hidden shelter stockroom areas that had been forgotten about. Edit. The GOM shelter they found while renovating had supplies from the early Cold War era, not specifically WWII. But the conspiracy rumors had been pretty dang close. That our ed teacher slept with his students. He was attractive, young, friendly etc. Then suddenly a rumor went around the school that he was sleeping with a sixth former, aged 17/18. He was suspended for a while but then decided to leave after he was cleared of wrongdoing. He got a new job at my cousin's high school across town. He did it again there. Got caught with another 17-year-old and was fired shortly after. That a high school substitute teacher was showing her self-made porn to students on her cell. The rumors spread rather quickly, but no one believed them because we all thought no one could be that stupid. Our minds changed instantly when we saw police cars and news crews showing up filming her being escorted off the premises in cuffs. Substitute teacher in junior high, who was married to the full-time 8th-9th grade biology teacher, who was smoking hot, looked like Christina Applegate in mid-20s, always wore tight dresses suits that exposed most of her legs with high heels, was rumored to be in porn. Well, another kid at school found some older pics of her online. It was something like soxermomsgoneworld.com, and turned out to really be her. It somehow was even reported in the news. She was fired. The husband kept working there and I think she just leaned on her side business, wedding planner. But man, every boy in whatever class she was in just froze up with a tight butthole. She was incredibly beautiful at the same time as intimidating with her stern stares. The vice principal turned principal was cheating on his wife. Started in shop class when he donated his car to us to change his flat tire. We weren't supposed to snoop, but We looked in his trunk. Found a pair of high heels and panties that would not fit his wife, or him if he was into drag. Turned out he was sleeping with a freshly graduated 18-year-old. They were divorced within 4 months after we found that. That the HS baseball coach was a pervert man was also a preacher and the freshman science teacher. After getting too comfortable with our small town school, he told one of the freshman girls to get on her knees and practice batting, facing him. He grabbed her by the hair and someone recorded it. He was fired, but there was no investigation launched. Pretty ducking sure the dude was a pedophile, too. That the senior science teacher was sleeping with a student. It all came out after the male student graduated and accidentally leaked the teacher's nude photo she had sent him. She went to jail, thank God. When I was in 9th grade, my friend told me there were 2 teachers with funny names. One was Mr. Neck, which I knew. The other was Mr. Head and his first name was Richard. I told her to shut up, it's probably a stupid rumor, like the rumor there's a pool on the 3rd floor. No parent would be cruel enough to name their kid that. The next year, Mr. Richard Head was my biology teacher. He was a nice guy. I absolutely adored him. His wife worked in the office. She was great too. I ended up working with his stepdaughter a few summers later. She told me he was Richard Head III. Each year the senior French class, or the ones who could afford it, took a trip to Paris. One year, maybe like 8ish years before I got there, one of the girls on the trip snuck out of the hotel they were all staying in to meet a guy. Nobody ever saw her again. I always thought it was just some case urban legend, but lo and behold, the French teacher who was on the trip, and still teaching when I was at the school, verified it one day. Honestly, best case scenario is she was murdered that night. I shudder to think of the alternatives. Not my school, but one where my friend taught. The superintendent's daughter got a job at the high school. This was a job that had about 300 applicants, but magically, she got it. Anyway, there were rumors of this teacher, who was 22 at the time, having an inappropriate relationship with one of her male students. For most of the year it was just flirting and nothing beyond that, but starting in April they began having sex and the students started telling everyone about it. You can guess how that ended. Teacher fired and the superintendent resigned because of health reasons over the summer. Oh boy. Let me tell you the tale of sheet legs. One of my friend's older sister, who went to our high school 5 years before we did, was at a party and wound up drunkenly hooking up with a guy. Apparently she was feeling adventurous and decided to try now. Cue them finishing, him pulling out, and proceeding to release a geyser of sheet of Old Faithful level proportions. Sheet on the bed, sheet all over their clothes, sheet all over themselves. It was like that scene in the live-action 101 Dalmatian when Glenn Close falls into the molasses. Understandably embarrassed, and not wanting to leave via the normal route through the still very active house party, she hastily decides to leave via the 2nd floor window, without even taking the time to put on her clothes. She jumps, breaks her legs on the front door stairs below, and is stranded, naked, and covered in sheet on the front lawn. I should mention this was during the height of a Canadian winter and -20 degrees. With nowhere to go, and urgent care needed before she passed out from shock and froze to death, she was left with no recourse but to knock on the door and crawl back into the party of 100 of her peers to phone an ambulance. We thought our friend was lying until 6 of our older friends who were there confirmed it. TLDR, friend's sister tries Nal at a party, sheets all over herself, jumps out the window to avoid the embarrassment. Breaks her legs from the fall and has to go back into the party, naked and covered in sheet, to phone help. My homeroom teacher was sleeping with a sophomore. He lived near me and one night we did some spies like us and caught them in the act. He was pounding her doggy style in the living room with all the lights on. We pounded on the front door and yelled his name and took off. This was late 80s. Everyone in my class in 7th grade was a real jerk to our social studies teacher. She was a 30-something-year-old woman who peaked in high school and for the life of her never seemed to find love. We all thought she was desperate to find a husband. Rumor was that she'd be on dating websites during class. This was early 2000s, mind you. But then one time when we had a field trip, we went to the mall food court for lunch, and instead of chaperoning the students, she legit invited a date to meet her there. So we're all sitting there in the food court snickering and watching her flirt with some random guy. As an adult, I feel bad that we picked on her, but to this day, thinking about her bringing her date to the food court is kind of funny. Well, it was half true. During high school we suspected a teacher, a man, of being a pedo. However, after an investigation, it was revealed that his ex-wife was the one molesting students. She was a teacher at the same school on the opposite end. I was 5 steps away from catching her in the act myself before 2 other students caught her. We gave him a sincere apology. Not in high school, but it was in elementary. There was this conspiracy that somewhere near our school there is an abandoned, 2-story, old, creepy house. In the residential lot there is also an external restroom, locked. Few people living nearby can hear strange noises at night coming from it. Common hearsay states that a strange person is living inside and there with nothing to eat but his own fecal excretions, with his slippers as his dinner plate. So we decided to check on it on our noon breaks and got into the lot. The locked restroom only had ventilation by decorative blocks that had decorated holes on it, so we could only peek a little. We got something to climb onto and peeked on the holes. And there it was. There really was a strange man living in it. Walls nothing but fesses, emitted very foul odor. The man started screaming and threw it fecal matter on the walls. We started to bolt the F out of there and never came back since. It turns out the man had some violent mental disorders and the family decided to lock him up in there. I think the neighbors were the ones that fed him. Poor man. I do not know what is his status now as it's been a long time ago. Too vague to remember.